I know, is they good? Okay, we're good. We're good.
Okay, okay.
Let me ask you a question. Do you need 10 parking? What is the office?
Well, why don't I let Sagit talk a little bit about Dr. Vishnia?
So I'm a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
I work with children, adults, and I actually specialize in people with autism and developmental disabilities. Background as far as this, I'm not going to give you everything, but the plan is to have people like me, psychologists, social workers, it's a mental health building. Now, it's important to differentiate psychologists from psychiatrists. This is not a medical building, so there's no overbooking, there's no overlap, meaning a patient comes at 10 o'clock, by 10:45 they leave, 15 minutes later somebody else comes. So there aren't a lot of people in the waiting room waiting like you can imagine, kind of like offices, like medical offices. And it's five, right? Five clinicians, including myself. And it's really not, it's all people who have a private practice, and it's a satellite office. So it's really part-time. Nobody's there for full-time. So it's 2-3 days a week, and it's different hours because it's a very individualized business. So some people can be there on a Saturday, some people can be there only on mornings. But it's usually, I actually don't know many fellow psychologists who do a private practice for full-time in an office. There are different sites that they go to. So it's 5 people, but really I doubt there will ever be 5 clinicians in the building at the same time. It's really, each and every one of them is part-time in different schedules, morning through night. So I guess for the purposes of this is what, it's really not gonna be ongoing traffic. There aren't people waiting for their to be called in. They come for their hour and for their 45 minutes, and that's the time they're seen. And most people work like me, so there's not even back-to-back. So you give yourself a few minutes in between sessions. So again, there is no overlapping, really, between the different clients who come.
Well, what I'm asking is, you need those 10 parking spaces. Is that what you...
Did you want to talk
Actually,
about now his
I'll
turn.
speak to that issue. Okay. All right, so we did discuss this at some length, and Dr. Vishnia has indicated that she plans on having 5 practitioners at the building on a part-time basis with staggered schedules. But even if we assume that everybody's there all at once on a half-time basis, the trip generation rate would be 1 person in session, 1 person waiting, and 1 clinician. With 5 clinicians, that would equate to 15 people on site at any one time at a full-time rate. If we go half-time, that reduces parking demand down to 7.5 spaces at a conservative estimate, which is about what we have right now. We have 7 spaces, 1 handicap and 6 regular spaces. So right now, we think our current parking is very close to current demand.
All right. Well, look, we're going to adjourn this because we need to re-advertise. And in the meantime, our next meeting is January 10th. If you can look at that and see if there's some way you can get in a couple of more parking spaces.
All right, I'll work with planning.
Good. That's
See
perfect.
if we can get something together that could at least give us maybe a couple more spaces.
Good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In order to move this along, I see it says that the SECRA is pending. Did you get any correspondence from DEW regarding the environmental review? Because if this board is ready to act January 10th, but there's no recommendation from the environmental department, the only action they can take is to deny, or wait.
No, we haven't heard anything. We filed
Okay.
a short environmental assessment form. There's no anticipated
Okay.
impacts.
Well, they're waiting for, I have here from Howard Barnett, is that they're waiting for the transcript.
Oh, boy. Okay.
The transfer?
No,
Transcript.
Oh, the transcript,
They
okay.
want to see what you say here.
Oh, okay, I see.
So it was probably a good thing that you spoke tonight.
We do not anticipate any environmental impacts Certainly, if there's increased parking, there may be some additional drainage rings, but those could easily be designed to work with the high groundwater table. The truck loading space, well, we don't, there is also the item of the truck loading space. I was kindly reminded. Um,
The inventory is,
Wait a minute, I need you to go to the mic. Go ahead.
the only delivery that will ever happen is pizza for lunch. And no, really, there's no inventory. It's a pen and a notepad.
Okay.
So there will never be a need for any truck. Right, so they won't,
All right.
that's never gonna happen.
Well. All right, let's adjourn it to January 10th. Work with planning, and let's hope that by that time, we can have a environmental report so that we can act on it.
Okay, well, I certainly wouldn't want that to scotch everything.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
May I hold on to this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, David has the file. I'm sorry. John, do they have to come back to you for denial?
We'll certainly get that amended.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. All right, this has been adjourned to January 10th.
January 10th, thank you.
You're very welcome. Next case is case 1-16166-779 Middle Country Road, LLC, care of Watermill Caterers. 711 Smithtown Bypass location, northeast corner of Middle Country Road and Hobson Avenue, St. James, property zone WSI. Request special exception to maintain 2 repair garages. Very special exception standard that requires adequate parking, lot area, and buffers. Variance to decrease buffer zone from 50 feet to 37 existing. Increase floor area ratio from 25% to 33% existing. Reduce the minimum parking from 54 spaces to 23 spaces. Increase the maximum height of 3 wall signs from 15 feet to 16. Increase the maximum height of 2 wall signs from 15 feet to 16. Increase the number of wall signs from a maximum of 1 sign to 2 signs. Sure. Wait 1 minute.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. My name is John Zolo. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, 779 Middle Country Road. As you may recall, this case was previously before this board on June 22nd, 2010. So it asked that that hearing testimony that was presented and documents that were submitted would be considered as part of this application. I do have minutes from the June 22nd, 2010 hearing, which I'll submit to the board for their consideration and inclusion in the record. Just to refresh the board's recollection, this property is located on the northeast corner of Middle Country Road and Hobson Avenue in St. James. It's a corner piece of property, and while we're on the subject of corners, the affidavits of filing and posting along with the certified mailings have been filed with the clerk. The property has 122-foot frontage on Middle Country Road and 300-foot frontage on Hobson Avenue. The property zoning district is WSI. The property size is 1.84 acres. A brief history of this property. There was a site plan for this building approved by the town in 1987. A building permit was issued for this property in 1987. Interesting enough, when you look at the CO, the building department card, the property wasn't CO'd until 1996. Fairly lengthy time. I'm not certain why that is, but regardless, there is a CO on the building. The building is 12,038 square feet. It was originally approved in 1987 as a single-story warehouse. The parking requirement on the site plan from 1987 was 24, and that for warehouse use was 1 per 500 square feet. My client, the applicant here tonight, purchased the building in 2007. When they purchased the property, the building is as it exists today. 4 spaces, 4 potential tenancies. When I was last before this board in June of 2010, my application was to get 2 special exceptions for auto repair and to allow a Curves, which exercise facility, and to remain. And what prompted and what started the whole application process was my client had the possibility of getting a tenant, LA Boxing, but ultimately LA Boxing moved to the town of Huntington to a space that they thought was more suitable. But regardless, for this property, with these parking conditions, LA Boxing and Curves in the same site would not have worked. Meeting with the planning department over the course of time from June 2010 up until approximately a month ago, the most suitable use for this location, considering that the building has been there and approved since 1987, is a warehouse and auto repair type of use where the parking is not so demanding for the site. Currently, the board, currently before this board on June 22nd, 2010, was Smithtown Auto Trim, which is still a tenant. There was Rocket Auto Detailing, which is no longer a tenant, and Curves, which is no longer a tenant. The present tenancy at the building is Smithtown Auto Detailing, Auto Trim, and Mr. Al Braunruther is here tonight from Smithtown Auto Trim. They've been there for at least 12 years. So we have that tenant, and now there is also a small damage repair business and the facility, which falls into the category of auto repair. I'm going to give you some photos, which you already have photos of the shopping center, but I'll just give you additional photos. If you're looking at the building from left to right, Smithtown Auto Trim is, I would call that Suite A. B is vacant. C is where the small damage repair is located. And D is where there is a potential for a tenant that would be coming in, and that would be a warehouse of arcade type of games. There would be warehouse and storage of those type of games, so falling into the category for warehousing. The hours of operation for Smithtown Auto Trim, as I understand, are 8 to 5, and on Saturdays 8 to 12. The small damage repair center is 8 to 4, and the toy warehouse storage is proposed, as I've been informed, is 10 to 5. Everything that I'm really talking to you about originally, and if you read the minutes from June of 2010, was really intended to start out as a housekeeping measure, but ultimately what happened is the auto repair special exception, when you look at those criteria, there are certain things on this site that need variances from this board, specifically with respect to parking. So, and as I was looking at the minutes of the hearing and going back and looking over some of the correspondence that went back and forth from this board to the applicant and from a proposed tenant, I want to present those to you, some of which you might have, which is a 1990 letter, but also have letters from AAA Tire. But I want to give those to you, and then I want to show you some interesting issues that come up. when my client started working on this building, he was issued a stop work order, and then it was informed that the space that was created inside the building was never permitted. So that's really what started the process. And I give you the letters from the town from the Planning Department Board of Zoning Appeals of October 18, 1990, September 19, 1990, and September 18, 1990. And what I thought was interesting, specifically if you look at the letter from the town plan department for the planning advisory report dated September 18, 1990, if you look at the paragraph number 2 that says site, it talks about the total square feet of the building is 12,096 square feet. But then when you look at the applicant's proposal, the proposal of the applicant was to use 4,914 square feet of the building on a one-story repair garage for the installation of automobile telephones. So you have to figure back in 1990, there were separate spaces in there. All right? That's how I read that, and I think it's a reasonable interpretation of that letter, because otherwise it would have been for the full 12,000 square feet. And then if you look at the AAA discount tire letters that are dated September 17, 1992, and there's a memo to David Flynn dated September 18, 1992. He talks about this is Mr. Horner, the president of AAA Discount Tire, and again, this is September 17, 1992. It is my intention to lease space at 779 Middle Country Road at St. James, town of Smithtown, Unit 3C, which has an available space of 2,000 square feet. This is a multi-tenant building. I am presently located in Wisconsin for a period of 5 to 6 years. So again, the building department's position was, and why we're here, is that there were never these spaces in there. And yet, if you look at these letters, it seems to be pretty obvious that there were spaces for these tenancies back in 1992. Again, I bring this up because we're talking about parking on the site and uses on the site. And there's a letter to David Flynn dated September 18, 1992, which talks about the uses on the property. And but then, as you go to look at the COs that were issued for the property, the sign permits are very interesting, because you would think if you had one tenant in a building, you'd only have to have one sign with lettering or wording for the one tenant. Yet if you read the different sign permits, you have Bell Atlantic 9X, which is 95. You have in 1996 DNR Advertising and Mailing. 1997 you have Z-Bart Tidy Car. 1990 in 2000 you have Quest Financial Corp. And then if you continue on to the final page there, you have Worldwide Hotel Supply sign in 2000. Then you have Creative Auto Accessories Inc. in 2000. And then you have looks like Amity Auto Glass in 2003. So I bring this to your attention only to say that my client bought the property in the condition it was in. He's taking care of everything that needs to be taken care of and following the guidance of the building department and the planning department. But when we come down to special exception criteria, the critical component is parking. And the request that we have with respect to the variance for parking is 54 spaces to 23 spaces. 23 spaces is what is there. We can't create any more. But Smithtown Auto Trim employs 2 people. If you look at their square footage at 1 per 250, they require 13 parking spaces. The Denton Repair Shop has 1 employee, and based upon their square footage, requires 9 parking spaces. And the warehouse for the arcade games will require 20 parking spaces at the 250. We've submitted to this board the request for wholesale warehousing and auto repair, 2 auto repair stores, and the potential for a tenant coming in for a warehouse, and the potential for another storage company coming in, which is very speculative, all looking at parking 1 per 250, but not drawing a lot of parking, not requiring a lot of parking. So I'm asking the board to look at the history of the site, recognizing that my client purchased the property as it is, has done everything according to the book with the town of Smithtown overseeing them, um, and needs to get these type of uses because the building has been mostly vacant since about 2005. Right now, you have 2 tenants in there. And another variance, one of the criteria for the special exception is that you have a parking for one truck parking spot. I'm asking the board to waive that condition. The buffers that you have there and the variances that we're seeking, again, the conditions that are on the outside have not changed. My client has not changed the footprint of the property. The special exception criteria is the FAR is not to exceed 25%. This has 33% FAR. But back when the building was constructed in 1987, the FAR was 50%. So again, these are conditions that they have to deal with. There's conditions they're trying to rectify. So I'm coming to this board asking for your relief for the special exception permits for the auto repair for the 2 units and also for parking relaxation so they can work with the town's parking criteria as best they can while still trying to market and get occupancy for these stores. And with respect to the signs variances that we're looking at, I know the town rounds up. So we have the wall signs from 15 feet to 16 feet, but actually the wall signs are 15 feet to 15 feet 4 inches. So I'm asking, those signs are the signs that are depicted in the photos. Those are the signs that have been there. My client purchased a property like that, did not add any signs, did not take any signs away. And in fact, at the request of the building department, they turned the signs white face out, so as to minimize the impact to the community. Well, driving by, so there's not signage until we have this approval. Again, it's not 16 feet. I know they round up, but it's really 15 feet 4 inches. And if you're familiar with the property, again, I should go back, and you have the minutes. This property is on the corner of Hobson and Middle Country Road. Across the street, there are auto dealers. That would be to the south. To the east, there's auto repair. To the west, there's a Chinese restaurant, I believe, or Asian restaurant, and across the street, there's, I believe, auto. So, keeping with the auto repair is consistent with that corridor, and I think from what I presented at the last hearing on June 22nd, 2010, and what I presented to you this evening, I hope that you would see fit to grant the variances requested from my client tonight. Thank you.
Okay. You know there's no secret?
Yes, I know that.
Okay. All right, planning?
A few comments. First, I think from an overall planning standpoint, this is much better than the application when it first came in. The second thing is with respect to the variances, I think the thing that perhaps is most important is the buffer in the back. When the board first approved the special exception for repair garage, and I think it was 1990, it required a 50-foot buffer, and I believe that's what the plan showed. Somewhere between then and now, and perhaps it was only a year later, but somewhere between 1990 and today, a little bit of the buffer was taken out to put in extra asphalt for a different curb cut. We, in the planning advisory report, my recollection is, and please bear with me, it's been over a year, I think, since we wrote the report, is that we're recommending that the 50-foot buffer be put back to the prior approval. If that's not realistic or if it's not fair, what we would recommend that if the buffer is smaller, that additional planting above and beyond what's normal be put in there, because we don't think it's really fair for the homeowners who live behind there to basically have a repair garage with a suboptimal buffer zone.
Madam Chairman,
Yeah.
I appreciate Mr. Flynn's comments. There are some residents here who I suspect will come up, and I believe they support the application. This is a good neighbor. The shopping center has not affected anybody, even when it was occupied. There were no complaints. I think it would be unfair to require a 50-foot buffer, but I think certainly a minimal buffer with dense plantings would probably be sufficient. But again, If you hear from the neighbors that are here, you're not going to have any complaints from anyone. There haven't been any complaints, and I'm sure you would have been aware of that if there were. So I'd ask you that you grant the variance for the buffer because it's consistent with the site. And again, that asphalt that was put down was done probably around 1995, 1996, as I understand, and it's been that way and to present. I don't see there's any real reason to change that. So I would ask that this board see fit to not require that 50-foot buffer.
Okay, but you're in agreement that you would, with the 37-foot buffer, that you would do intense planting?
I think
Heavy
that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yep, if the buffer's there, if there's a buffer there already, we don't have to take up asphalt, and you're asking for plantings in that buffer, then I think that's a reasonable request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? May I have your name, please?
Mark Little,
And your address, Mark?
172 Hobson Avenue, St. James, New York.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
As far as we are the residents across the street from the property, our property actually is closest to the Smithtown Auto Trim business there. They have been a very good neighbor to us. We've never seen a situation with parking. The entire street front by their property is no parking. They've never had to utilize that space. I can never recall seeing a time, even with the full occupancy of the building, that they ever needed to have more spaces than they do now. As far as the buffer is concerned, I believe there is already some plantings between that property and the adjacent property. And I think it also speaks volumes that there was no complaint from that homeowner. But we do greatly support them. The businesses that are there are, very good. Their business hours are, as stated, doing normal business hours. They have had at times tenants in there which were not, did nighttime trucking, but that has not been a concern since, I believe 1990 is when the Auto Trim moved in. 12 years ago. So we definitely would do support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Ready, moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Is that yours? Yeah, I didn't want to take it home. Thank you. Next case is case 1-16537, Andrew and Alice DeBlasi, 52 Johnson Avenue South, Kings Park. Location: west side of Johnson Avenue South, north of Old Comac Road, Kings Park, property zone R10. Request variance, reduce the front yard setback from 40 feet to 36 for a deck existing. Reduce the side yard setback from 12 feet to 2, and total side yard from 28 feet to 14 for an existing sheds and carport. Reduce the accessory structure setback from 6 feet to 0 for an existing pool, filter, heater, pool with deck, and shed.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Janet Haberly here on behalf of the applicant. Power of attorney has been given to counsel.
Yeah, we're fine. Go ahead, Janet.
Want to?
Yeah. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're here this evening for several variance requests. A reduction of 4 feet from 40 feet to 36 feet for a 24-inch high front deck. A reduction of minimum side yard from 12 feet to 2, and total side yard from 28 to 14 for 2 sheds and a carport. And the third one is a reduction of side and rear yards for an accessory structure, which is an above-ground semi-in-ground with a deck around it, filter and heater from 6 feet to 0. All structures are existing. As far as the pool with its attached deck is concerned, I just would like to advise the board. The pool itself is actually over 6 feet away from both the side yard and rear yard, which you can see on the survey. The pool deck is over 2 feet away on both sides also. It's really just the pool filter and heater that are less than about a foot away from the property line. But I guess it was all kind of put together, and that's why it reads the way it does. Excuse me. The de Blasi's purchased the home in 1993. The structures in question were built between 1998 and 2004. This parcel is unique in that it is the last lot on a dead-end street. Additionally, its northern property line abuts the Long Island Railroad tracks. There is a 15-foot limited access area, which is taken within the parcel owned by the de Blasi's. It's not outside of that. And there's a second buffer on the western side also taken out of the de Blasi's property. The western buffer was canceled by the planning board on September 20th of '07. A copy of that resolution was just given to the board. That buffer was originally created because the adjacent parcel to the west had been zoned commercial, and the buffer was created to separate it from the adjoining residential properties. That parcel has since been rezoned to residential, and so that buffer no longer exists. The owner submitted a request for waivers for both buffers, and the planning board approved those waivers on September 21st of this year. A copy of that approval was also just given to the board. The waiver for the northern line was for the 2 existing sheds and carport as they currently exist. That waiver was granted for those existing structures only. The waiver for the western side is a moot point at this point since it was negated in '07 before our application came about. In short, it is the only lot with those 2 buffers, making a small lot even smaller. We have submitted quite a few photos with the application showing how nicely everything was built. We've also submitted an affidavit from the adjacent property owner to the west, Mr. Cusimano, who says he has no problems with the pool and deck and pool filter, all of which are adjacent to his parcel. There are no environmentally sensitive lands involved and no negative impact on the neighborhood. I don't think the railroad certainly has any objection to the sheds and the carport, and the neighbor to the west has submitted his affidavit in support, so I can't see that he has any negative impact upon himself also. While some of the requests might appear to be somewhat substantial, we ask that the board take into consideration the size and location of the lot, which lessens the impact of the variance requests. The family has 3 kids, 3 dogs, and has converted the 1-car garage into a small den to accommodate the family. The only alternative would be to remove the structures. Obviously, the situation was self-created by the homeowner. I don't know, I saw the advertisement when I got a copy of the agenda today, and I saw that there was no secret determination as yet. I wanted to question that because I don't see any environmental concerns here, if I may.
don't know why. Thank you. Do you see that in the folder?
No, I'm wondering why there's no secret record. I don't know.
Does it say anything why?
What else?
Mr. Barton wants to consider the information presented by the applicant as well as any comments received by the public. So if you want to see that,
He's looking for the transcript.
basically.
May
Of
I
the
ask for
hearing.
what purpose?
just-
I don't know.
Every now and then they do that, though. Not just, they didn't just single you out, they do that every so often.
No, I didn't feel singled out. No, I just, normally it would be for an environmental purpose, and that's why I was questioning it.
The floor plan of the existing finished basement submitted with this application predicts a kitchen area and a full bathroom. The presence of the kitchen area and a full bathroom along with the design of the existing outside entry suggests that the basement may be used for residential purposes independent of the main dwelling.
Okay, may I address that?
Sure can.
Okay. These people do a lot of entertaining. They bought the house in 1993 with a finished basement as it was. It was already finished, rather, when they purchased it. The only thing that Mr. de Blasi did was add a stove and a sink and a refrigerator downstairs with the outside basement entrance so that they could carry the food outside. They have a little tiki bar out there. They do, you know, the party people, I guess. I don't know. Also, by code, I know that they are allowed a second kitchen as long, Mr. Bongino will correct me if I'm incorrect. It's my understanding that you're allowed to have a second kitchen as long as there's a free flow throughout the house, which there is. There's no accessory apartment there at all, and we would welcome the board or the building department to come and make their inspection if you like. That's not the case at all.
Well, that's his concern.
Okay, well, at least I know what it is now. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Is there anything
The
else?
other concern I have is the wood treehouse.
Oh, yeah, I see it's a little over the line. They're going to take it down.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really cute, too, but that's fine. It is over the line a little bit.
I know.
Is there anything else, ma'am?
I don't think so. Planning? No, thank you. Gentlemen?
No? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thursday, moon second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. I'm glad you got it. Good. Next case is case 1-16558, John Randazzo, 51 Holly Avenue. Oh, but that's not the location. Yeah, but the location I want. North side, unnamed, unimproved street, east of Wildwood Lane, Smithtown. Properties are 10. Request variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 32 feet for proposed front porch. Alter environmentally sensitive land, depth to groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet. And your name, please.
John Randazzo Jr., 53 Wildwood Lane, Smithtown.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
You want to tell us why you're here, please?
First was here on November 22nd, and I do appreciate you for seeing me so soon after not having everything in line last time. What I'm here for is a variance for a front porch. I believe you guys will know over there that the actual setback is further than the 40 feet. I think Allison pointed that out last time because of a paper street for an easement that we have. So I believe the setback is actually closer to 85 feet. So it's on Wildwood. I'm sure you're very familiar. The main purpose of the porch is for handicap access for my father-in-law. And since the house is set up because of the depth to groundwater, it wasn't really feasible for us to put a regular ramp due to ADA regulations. So we figured to not make it an eyesore for the neighborhood, we would build out the porch, put in a automatic hydraulic lift built in, so it would be easier accessible for my father-in-law, as well as not, you know, be so ugly as you drive by, because, I mean, let's face it, they don't look too good on the front of houses. So I think everything we did was tastefully done. I don't think anybody in the area, obviously, doesn't have much to say about it. So it's really the reason why we're going for it, and I would appreciate it if you guys can take that into consideration. Thank you.
Planning? Gentlemen? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing now, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Rayleigh moved the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. All right, now we'll be going to the adjourned cases. Case 16531, DLJ Ventures, Inc., has been adjourned to January 10th. And the next is 16548, Michael Wortham. I guess he's not here, 275 River Road, St. James. Okay. That concludes our cases for tonight. Thank you so very much.